Hello everyone and welcome to the Student Art Podcast. I'm your host Ross Baxter, and today we've got another amazing guest for you for episode 12. We've got Jess Hyder, a technical designer at Rare. How are you doing, Jess?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me, Ross.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm really looking forward to today's podcast and hearing about your journey and what you do as an artist and I guess a designer at Rare, and what you've done so far to get basically where you are. So, as usual, and to everyone who's listening to the podcast, we cover a lot of different topics. The main topic is always student education. And I just want to thank everyone who's been sharing their artwork in the comment section below. And if you're new to the podcast, just make sure to share your artwork and I'll give you a shout out and I'll share your work on social media. So we've actually got a big list of shout outs today before we get into the podcast. The first shout out is Ashley Wade. We've got Sakaria Markic, Philip Purl, Dylan Abernethy, my good friend Eddie Pedro, Felix Hultine, Stefan Vermeulen, and Kieran Goodson. So what I'll be doing is I'll be sharing all your artwork, also in the background as well, at the start of the video, and then obviously we'll be getting into the main video of talking about Jess and what she does. So if you're new to the podcast, make sure to check us out on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Stitcher. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and let's just get straight into the podcast. So as usual, Jess, basically it's always nice to just start off with letting all the students and everyone listening just to hear a bit about yourself. So what is it that you do, and I guess what got you into art? Just tell us a wee bit about yourself. It'd be great to hear your story.
Sure. So, like you said, I'm a technical designer across at Rare. The work I do there, I'm kind of more in kind of like a prototyping section. I tend to work with other designers to kind of think of new ideas and where we want to take like our games, which is really, really cool. Because of that, it means that I get to do a lot of different things all at the same time, which is really fun and really, really enjoyable. So I, like you say, my background is art and animation. That's what I studied when I was at Abertay. I was on the computer arts course. From there, things kind of went a little bit all over the place. I did pixel art as a junior artist across at 4J Studios, which many of you hopefully know because it's right there in the centre of Dundee. I then moved across to Epic Games, and I was the European Community Manager for Unreal Engine, so kind of like developer relations and support for the engine side for 2 years. And then from there, I work at Rare now. That's how I kind of moved across to technical design. 3 very different roles, but all been amazing.
Brilliant. Like that's the like one of the great things as well, when it comes to what I've seen about your work and stuff is like you're saying there is the range and so forth, and like you've explored so many different things as well. And I guess also one of the main things that I've learned from what I've seen about what you do is it's a lot of community based as well, and like you've always I guess you've been very supportive of a lot of different things, and you've made sure to get yourself out there. And that's also one of the main topics I want to talk about today in relation to just student education is like social media. And one of the really cool things I read about what you've done at Epic Games was you were able to like help their following grow like tremendously. Like that was crazy. It says like you increased it to like 94,000 followers. Like I was like, wow, gee whiz. So like maybe it would be great to hear about like marketing and like your best like tips and advice to maybe help students as well. But before we get into all those awesome stuff, I guess like the big question, like what got you into art?
So I think there's 2 things that kind of set me off down my path. The first one was my dad was on the first year that they did computer games programming at Abertay, like 25 years ago or however long it was, 20 years ago. So they used, and my mom did business computing there as well. So I used to run around Abertay when I was like 4 years old and kind of watched everyone kind of make everything. I think apparently I got to do a bit of games testing when they were doing like children's based games and stuff. I would kind of test things out for people and different students and things like that. So on that side, games and things were always a big part of my life. The art side came in when I was in high school. We did a we did like a little project in like second year, I think it was. And it was a stop motion animation project. And we were showing this clip of like a rabbit. I can't even really remember what it does. It escaped from like a theme park or something, and we
Yeah.
had to continue on the story. Um, and to do it, we then had to do it through stop motion animation. So I remember going home, creating this little pipe cleaner skeleton of this little rabbit, and then sewing something around the outside with my like 12, 13-year-old terrible sewing
No,
skills
that's awesome.
and stuffing it in. Um, um, I think in the end our rabbit went and robbed Pizza Hut, if I remember correctly. I don't know why, it just did.
That's an
Um,
awesome story. You can't go wrong with that. It's a creative choice, creative path to go down.
but that kind of got me really into animation. And from there, I kind of really wanted to be a hand-drawn animator for Disney. That's what kind of my ultimate goal was. So I did life drawing while I was at high school, got into the computer arts course for Abertay, and then I think it was either my first or second year at university, Disney announced they were closing down their hand-drawn animation studios.
Ouch.
Yeah, and not long after that, Studio Ghibli said that they were going to close down theirs as well. And kind of, I was like, right, okay, need to rethink this a little bit.
Yeah, replan it.
Replan. And it was while I was there, like I said, I thought I was going to go more down a film route. And I kind of really got drawn into games. I
Okay.
like the fact that games were interactive. It's like, we still have to do everything a film does. We can tell a story, show emotions, and really capture and engage an audience. But that audience can do whatever they want at almost at any point, and you have to be able to react and respond to that accordingly. And I
Definitely.
really like that as a challenge.
Awesome. Like, I think I wish, because so animation was also one of my original passions. So I took part in a course called Animation Mentor. So it's like an online
Yes.
course. Oh my god, it was so awesome. Like, it was so good. Obviously, since it was online, like, obviously it'd be great to do like actual in-house experience, like actually being there. But it was still a great experience. And I'm like on the same boat as you in terms of like I wish 2D animation just, obviously, like, I love 3D and that's my main passion, but I just wish 2D was still a thing. There's a lot of debate in terms of, or a lot of announcements, like I can't tell if it's fake or not, but hopefully a bit more animation will be coming back for 2D. But I think it's really, I don't know, stylized based, and it really depends because 3D is so dominant and there's like so much stuff you can do with 3D. Obviously, it makes it easier and it's quicker as well. And I think it just, 2D is like such, like, I think it's so more, like, it's more skill based. And I just, well, hopefully one day it'll come back. We'll see what happens.
As I say, I hope it doesn't disappear completely because like the craft itself is just so amazing to do.
Yeah.
But I think you're seeing it. You're seeing it in games as well. You're seeing a lot of 2D games, beautiful 2D games with gorgeous art styles.
Yeah.
I played one called The Old Man's Journey
Right, okay.
recently, and it's stunning, and it's mainly based on 2D animation. So
I-
it may be dying, but let's put it this way: it's definitely not dead yet.
Because I saw one of your tweets. I'm trying to think what the game was, because I was watching it on YouTube not that long ago. Basically, it was a game about like under the sea, and basically I'm pretty sure it was you who tweeted it, and it was like an awesome sort of like 2D stylized game, and it was all basically based around beauty and stuff. I'm trying to remember what the game is, but it was like fish everywhere. It was like aqua based, and
Oh, Absu.
yeah, that's the one. Yeah, Absu. Like
Yeah.
I watched that not long ago. Like that kind of like brought back sort of like obviously there was like a lot of 3D, but it's like a lot of 2D in there involved as well, and I really liked that. That was an awesome like new take on things. So
Yeah, I was gonna say Absu is 3D, but it's got a beautiful 2D rendering style.
Yeah.
Of how they do it, how they do their lighting.
hmm
Yeah, it was a giant squid. Matthew Nava, who was the lead artist on Journey,
right,
he
okay.
just broke off to create his own company, and that's how you can just see the art direction in there. It's just absolutely gorgeous, like you said.
So obviously when it comes to the Shooting Art podcast, I always talk about, for example, your education, and since we obviously went to the same university, obviously at different times and stuff, it makes it a wee bit easier for us too. So obviously it's all about getting students the right information when it comes to, I guess, how to make their career path a wee bit more easier and a bit more
Yep.
smoother. So I always so I sent you a few questions.
Yes.
I know it's a few weeks back, but I'll refresh them a wee bit for you. So
I was gonna say I went and reread through them
all right, okay.
before. Yep.
Perfect, awesome. So, as always, like obviously there's this whole debate about going to university, going to college, and then there's obviously online courses and stuff. I guess it would be great to start off with the first question. this is obviously like a big one, but is there anything you wish you learned when you were studying at university in terms of that maybe could have helped you propel your career a bit quicker and forward?
Yeah, okay. So two things that I wish I kind of learned to begin with. The first one was um, I, whilst I was at uni, obviously I wanted to make the most of the opportunity while I was there. So
Yeah.
I really put a lot of time and effort into all of my coursework and everything else. Meaning that I kind of ended up working somewhere between 8 to 14-hour days, including weekends, on my coursework and on my projects, because I just wanted to learn so much. Um, and then I kind of almost continued some of that into kind of my working career, um, which was great for a while, but after like 2.5 years, I just burnt out completely, like to the point where I collapsed from exhaustion because I was just trying to do too much. Um, so I kind of wish that whilst I was at uni, it is amazing to have passion, and it is so good that you want to go out there and you want to learn as much and you want to grow and you just want to make things, which is great. But trying to set yourself up and get yourself into a really good routine right from the start, it's like it's okay to not have to work on everything all of the time. It's okay to take breaks. And actually, taking breaks is really, really good. And that kind of leads me on to my second point, which is something that I really learned, especially since I've started design. It's as amazing as it is that we make games and we actually practice kind of the technical aspects of our craft, actually living is really, really important. So the work that I'm doing right now, a lot of it is actually drawing on experience. It's personal experience, it's life experience, it's things that I've gone out and done in the world. So I'd really, really recommend people get out and do stuff, even if it's just random things. Like I've learned stuff from bouldering, which I can apply back to design work, which I never thought would be a thing.
Awesome.
Going out and doing walking, just getting involved in other things outside of games or outside of films or whatever industry it is that you want to go into.
Hmm.
And I get people look for that because it's so important. If we're coming up with new ideas, you need to have influences from different aspects other than just games, because
Definitely.
otherwise you don't bring those fresh perspectives.
Like it's because I'm exactly on the same page because I was exactly the same as you when I was in university in terms of I was working all the time, and obviously everyone wants to get to a place at a certain like speed and stuff, and they want to get better and so forth. But you lose sight of the small things, and it's like you said about getting out and so forth. It helps you, improves your imagination. You have a clear mind, and I think that's one of the main things that I like to obviously bring up in every podcast is the importance of just like living life and just not always having to stress about it, because everyone always overthinks everything, unfortunately, when it comes to the idea of career, and they want to obviously do well and stuff, but like people just need to start stepping back more and seeing the bigger picture. And like for example, like you're saying there, that you're working 8 hours to 14 hours a day. That's incredible. That's insane. And like I really respect that. Like that's amazing. But it's like you said, as you've looked back at it, and like there's other ways you can approach it and stuff.
Yeah.
Because like the main thing with me was exactly like you, was obviously like life experience. Like for example, I work in retail at the moment, and when I finished university, I did not have a clue how to talk to people because I forgot how to socialize. And when I was able to get into retail, I learned how to get out of my comfort zone again, and I was more relaxed, I was more chill, I was just having more fun. And because of that, my art got better, believe it or not. And even though I was doing less hours, things were just, I don't know, everything was just coming in all together, and it was great. Everything was clicking. That was awesome. Perfect. Thanks for saying that. Obviously, the next question, which is
Okay.
the big question, or one of the big questions. Do you think university teaches you how to be ready for the industry?
I think in a lot of ways, yes.
Okay,
Uh, so we were really lucky, as you know, on Aberdeen we do a lot of group project work.
definitely.
Have been to some other universities now, um, and spoken at them and hearing about their courses. Sometimes they seem to leave that quite late
Hmm.
until one of the unis I was at. I think the first time they did a group project was in the last semester of their last year,
Okay.
which to me felt far too late. I'm really glad that Aberdeen we get it very, very early on, because it's welcome to the games industry kind of thing. You're always going
Yeah.
to be working with others. There's very, very, very few scenarios where you'll ever work on your own in that way. And not just the fact that you're going to be working with others, you're going to be working with others of different disciplines. So the sooner that you're able to, like you said, being able to socialize and communicate easily across the board, that just stands you in good stead. Because if you can go into a company and yeah, okay, maybe you've got your specialization, but you know how to be able to go and talk to other people, maybe
Hmm.
translate the work that you're doing into a way that they understand, and you can communicate across what you need to get from them or how you need their input. It's a win-win for everybody at that stage. So on that side, yes. I also found all the opportunities we got whilst we were at university, all this kind of side stuff that they put on offer, that really prepared me in different ways as well. So we did something called Uchroma, which I don't think exists anymore. It was the European Cross Media Academy,
Okay.
and a whole bunch of us went out to Copenhagen and worked with, I want to say it was like the Danish Film Institute.
Wow, right, okay, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, they sent a whole bunch of their students. There was 26 international students, then I think 40 from one of the local universities in Copenhagen. And we came together and we were there for 4 months and we made a film and a game. There was 3 teams effectively, each producing a film and a game, each based around a story world. And then in production, we kind of shared resources and we had to divvy up our time and stuff. And that was like working in an actual company. We had a design team who was kind of leading and taking forward where they wanted the concept to go. They had to communicate across to us in production. We had leads that would then divvy up the work tasks and work with everyone on the crafts and stuff, bring together people together. Are we scoping? Is our project within scope? Are we actually working on time? So that was amazing. And Dare, which I know is still going as well, Dare to be Digital, that's another great one. It's the full process you go through. And I think sometimes when we do our university projects, we only take it so far, but kind of almost being forced to take something from concept all the way through to finalization and release. Even if it's just pushing it up on something like itch.io, you don't have to do paid releases or anything like that. Just getting it out there and getting it in other people's hands. I think those things they can make such a difference, because as soon as you go through that entire process once, you're like, you get to the end bit and you're like, aha, okay, I'm going to do things different than when I start from the beginning. This was all unforeseen. And just having those loops that you can go through as many times as you can whilst you're still at university, I would definitely say make the biggest difference.
Awesome. Yeah, because like you've also done a few things that I found also, like, it wasn't obviously just related to the course, but you did a few things that I think a lot of more students need to get more involved in, which is, for example, you did the Principals Award, and then the mentoring scheme and quite a few other things. And I think a lot of students, they tend to, maybe it's just me, but I think a lot of people tend to, when it comes to artists anyway in general, are quite, I guess, maybe quite shy in general. But for example, the Principals Award for me was very rewarding in the sense that it kind of provided me a foundation that was outside of the course, but it played a huge part in terms of getting me ready for the industry.
Yep.
Because it was like the small things that the Principal Award provided. So just give a wee bit of context about the Principals Award to everyone's listening. So basically, it's an award system that Arte has designed basically to support students, to give them almost like a wee bit of hands-on experience and learning how would you describe it? Probably to get ready for the industry in a way, and learning how to be more professional. Yeah, exactly. How to promote yourself. And it's these other smaller courses that universities, maybe not all universities, but a lot of courses do tend to have these things that could help you get better. And I'm not sure, like, what would you say was like the main things, like also like the mentoring scheme, like that's another great example.
Yes. So
would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, I was going to use those for the next question you're going to ask me about benefits of joining university.
Perfect. We'll just fly straight onto that. Yeah, awesome.
There we go. Yeah, I would totally recommend them. I was quite surprised by how few people did them.
Yep.
Because from what I remember of the Principals Award scheme, they took you through CV writing,
Mm-hmm.
and they would check it like 2 or 3 times to make you like button it up and tighten it up so you get feedback and then you could iterate on it. But they also did like mock interviews. So
Yep.
again, they weren't based on a specific course because it was something that applied to the entirety of Abertay. So you had also like your food science groups as well, everything. It wasn't just games related. So they weren't going to ask you technical questions, but it was preparation for questions like, you know, teamwork and things like that. And just putting you in that scenario where you have 2 or 3 people potentially giving you this interview, like a panel interview, just getting over those fears. Because again, if something goes wrong or you completely freeze, you have almost like a safe space to work through it with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that first time it happened, it's not then the first time that it will happen to you when you go out into industry. The second one, so like you said, the mentoring program. So my mentor worked in the Department of Work and Pensions on the outskirts of Dundee.
Okay.
So again, completely unrelated to games. She was absolutely lovely, but she had no idea about the games industry, which was great because she then worked with me on all of the other stuff. She's like, right, you know what? I don't know anything about computers or software. That's not my thing at all. Fair enough. but she was like, I do know how to organize and manage teams. I do know how to lead projects and make sure that we hit deadlines and stuff. And so it was all kind of what we call like our social skills.
Hmm.
And I think those are the parts that we often maybe don't practice as much as we should do, because
Definitely.
those are the ones that I've found have come in incredibly useful, as well as the technical skills. Um, so having these opportunities where you have somebody who can actually guide you through them, because it's really terrifying to try and go out and do some of this stuff on your own. I mean, I can't imagine. She actually mentored me through going out to Uchroma, because for me it was the first time that I'd moved away from home. So she was kind of mentoring through and like just getting myself sorted while I was out there, even just homesickness
She
and things
encouraged you
like
to get
that.
that next step to propel yourself forward.
Yeah, it was. And it was just having somebody there to support you through it who is kind of like ambivalent to the situation in many ways. Like
Hmm.
she's impartial, but is still there to help and support you, which is really nice. So, um, yeah, she was great. Her name was Sarah. She was amazing.
Awesome.
So, yes,
Thank.
I would totally encourage people to go and find out what is on offer at their university and really make use of it, because I think we often tend not to, which is a shame.
Because like it's crazy to think, but it's like when I went to university, I'm probably exactly like you in terms of like the mindset of always obviously wanting to work as hard as you can, make sure you find the best opportunities out there, and like one of the main things I always preach is asking questions, and constantly asking questions no matter what. Doesn't matter how stupid it sounds or who it's to. Don't feel like afraid to ask questions. Then one of the main things I always realize, it's weird, but for some reason everyone hates presentations or doing like some sort of presentation. It's crazy. It's like it's weird. When I did presentations in university, I always made sure I was the first one up. I was like, right, to make sure that
Get
I
it
did,
over and done with.
yeah, get it out of the way. But it was weird. I also like developed like an interest in doing presentations, because it was like, I don't know. I just found it. Well, first of all, it was nice to see what other people were like exploring. Like, so you learn what other, I guess, projects people were doing, and like obviously you're learning as you go. And when it comes to, I guess, the idea of social skills, it'd be great, I think, to introduce more of it when it comes to presentations. But a lot of people, for some reason, when it comes to like the people I've asked, it's like a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't want to do that. I need to focus on my craft." But when it comes to the industry, it's not just about portfolio. Like, it's about you as a person. So I'm not sure what your thoughts are on like presentations and stuff, but it'd be great to maybe hear your thoughts. Or do you hate them?
So I was that person at university. I
Okay.
hated presentations. I used to get so nervous. So you would never guess this, but I was really shy.
Right. Okay.
I really, really struggled talking with people. Really, really struggled with it actually. So presentations were a nightmare to me. I mean, they were literally the things that I would stay awake at night fearing.
Yep.
But over the course of my time there, you kind of find your groove. It's one of those things that it's definitely true. The more you do it, not necessarily the easier it gets, but the more comfortable you get with it. I still get nervous before I go up on stage and give a presentation or speak, but it's much more controlled than what it was. It's not pure panic. It's just like, oh, I just hope I do this well. Um, Something I would say back, and something that I've really seen, is presentation skills are probably the most important thing you will take through with you, because no matter what job you do, you have to present your work at some point. So even as an artist, we do daily stand-ups. The art team have daily art stand-ups, and they have to stand in front of their peers and present what they are working on,
Right. Okay.
and they have art reviews.
Cool.
And it's the same with like animation. You used to do dailies for animation and stuff as well. For myself and kind of the tech design work, we do weekly. So we have like kind of like your daily scrum meetings, as well as then further longer weekly ones. We then have wider cross-project updates where we then stand up and talk about our work so everyone else in the studio knows what we're working on and things like that as well. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're working on something new or interesting or different, or you're giving an update, you have to go up and do it.
Yep.
So getting accustomed to it very early, it's certainly more beneficial. And I've just found just sheer will of just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it.
Just repetition.
Yeah, and also doing really scary ones, because then the normal ones don't seem as bad.
Yeah.
So the worst one I ever did, the most nerve-wracking,
Okay.
was Pecha Kucha for the 20 years of games in Dundee
Oh
like
yeah.
2 years ago.
Yep. I had to do the same, but I'll let you go first.
Yes, it was horrifying, because you had to stand up there. They'd specifically asked us not to use notes, so I think it's 6 minutes and 40 seconds, because it's the 20 slides 20 slides, 20 seconds each. You have no control over it, so it auto gets pushed on.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're there or not with what you're saying, it goes without you.
Definitely.
And it was in front, it was like 400 people audience, and then I think 10,000 people because they
Oh
were
my
streaming
God.
it out as well. It was
Right.
it was huge.
I did not have to do anywhere near that, but wow, right, okay, gee whiz.
Yeah, it was terrifying. It's not the biggest crowd I've done, but the fact that I had no control, I had no lectern, I had no notes, I just had to speak. So again, it's just a really short period of time.
Yeah.
I practiced and practiced and practiced. I used to do theatre work. I did
Oh,
amateur
right, okay.
dramatics.
Awesome.
So for me, like I had a script and I learnt my script, and then
Mhm.
I just had to control my pacing. So I just didn't and speed away with it. But I remember standing up to do it because again, I'd asked if I could be put near the front so I could get it over and
Yeah,
done
just to
with.
get out of the way makes it easier.
I remember walking up onto that stage. There was this little plinth, and it wobbled slightly, which just made it even worse.
Just hands shaking and everything.
Yep. I remember walking up, and I remember walking off. I don't remember anything in
yeah.
between because it was just panic. But I think from what I can remember afterwards and chatting to people, it was fine, and I said the right things, and I stuck to what I was saying, and it all was nicely timed, so it was great. But after that, and after having doing something like that, going back to then where I had like my notes, it was kind of like, oh, you have like half an hour, just go at your own pace kind of thing. Suddenly I was like, I am so much more calm doing this
Awesome.
because I'd gone to that other extreme.
That's the thing, is like, for example, it's the exact same thing with me doing the podcast and stuff. It's like, when you first start anything, it's the same with anything you do in life. It's when you first start out, it's always going to be a bit daunting, and it's learning to like step back and be like, it's okay. Like being like failing is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake or anything. Like no one's going to judge you. Like I always like my knees used to be like shaking like hell when I was doing presentations, and I could tell everyone was like, he's panicking, he's like stressing out, and I was like, and then I kind of learned like just step back and just enjoy it, have fun with it, and then obviously you begin to speak a bit louder, you look a bit more confident, and that day you're enjoying it, and that's what you want. You want to be able to show that obviously that you're passionate about what you do. Obviously, like a lot of people struggle with maybe doing presentations at different levels. Like a lot of people are a bit more scared or a bit more shy about reaching out. But don't feel like you have to. Your whole life and career is not based off one presentation mistake. Like there's you're gonna have tons of practice. So just go at it, do your best, and have fun with it. Or try to enjoy it as much as you can.
The best bit of advice I got for that came from when I was doing the like amateur dramatics and panto work, and it's like the audience doesn't come to see you fail. Like
Yep.
the audience will support you through if stuff goes slightly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually wanting you to. They're like, it's okay. We know stuff's gone wrong. That's life. It happens. Like keep going. Because at the end of the day, they wouldn't show up if they wanted to see you make a mess of it.
Definitely.
So.
So carrying on with like sort of the similar sort of path that we're going here, I guess, was there anything when it came to volunteering? Because one of the main things that I was reading was is it Yuki?
Yeah, Yuki and STEM.
So are you able to talk about briefly a wee bit about what you did there? Because there was a lot of awesome things that I was seeing that you did. It'd be great to hear about Yuki, if that's okay.
Yeah, so it's Yuki, which is the UK Interactive Entertainment, even UK Interactive
Yeah,
Entertainment. It's
that's
kind of like our body for kind of games in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
They work in partnership with STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and maths, to encourage younger people into those kind of degrees and those areas and those careers.
Yep.
So you go through STEM because they do like your DBS or PVG or whatever your disclosure check is,
Mm-hmm.
so that then you can go out and work in schools and work with young people.
Awesome.
And then they partner up with Yuki, who then I'm a video games ambassador, so I specifically kind of help people down the video games route.
Yeah.
So Yuki runs many different things throughout the years. They had their student conference, which I know they did one up at Abertay, I think a few months ago.
Okay.
And they do it all around the country in different locations. They used to do one in Staffordshire, and they used to do one down in London as well. So they're trying to kind of hit the different areas. And because of that, they're very orientated on trying to connect industry with students. So
Okay.
they also tend to do careers bars. So at places like EGX, RESD, as well as normal EGX,
Mm-hmm.
they have a section where they get people like myself, other video games ambassadors in, and we'll just sit for 2 hours, and it's like a drop-in clinic. Anyone can come in and chat, and because there's normally quite a good spread of disciplines, we can chat about anything. So we can go and look through portfolios, we can give you maybe career advice if you're uncertain about what even roles there are in the industry, because they're just expanding all the time.
There's so many
Um,
of them.
yeah, and then we could just talk about like if you have any questions or queries, if people just want a down-to-earth conversation, just hear stories about what it's like to work in the industry day to day. I've had a few people come with like their parents because parents have been like, oh, a role in the video games industry. So then being able to chat with them and be like, it's a valid career option now. It's has been for many years.
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of now being more and more accepted. Um, so we do volunteer work in that way at kind of at larger events. Um,
So
we then
are you
also,
still there? Are you still doing? All right.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Awesome.
yep, wherever I can. I think have I signed up to do one soon-ish? Yes, I think I have.
Okay.
I'm, I'm getting through April and then I'll look at my calendar
It's been
again.
so crazy
It has
working all
been.
the time.
So yeah, I've still done it. I think I started it in my last year at university. You can sign up to do it at any point. I got some weird looks because I was still a student back then, and
Right.
and it was from everyone. I mean, there was chemical engineers, bioengineers, there was geology teachers, there was everything at that point in this room when you go and do your induction. They all looked at me like, "But you're a student." I was like, "I can still talk to other young people about what it's like,"
Yeah.
and it's just something.
It's that sort of idea that that's the one thing when it comes to the industry that I like in terms of like when it comes to like how they review you in terms of how it's got better. So like our industry is like nothing like maths or like law or anything in terms of obviously the grades mean obviously the grades show that you've done the work and it shows that you have maybe like the right mindset and that you're obviously that you're not lazy and so forth. But the great thing that I like about art is that I'm not sure what it is based on your experiences and stuff, but it feels like it's a lot less judgment based off, I guess, age. Like it's mainly down to you doing the right work. Obviously, like, there's the whole idea of experience, which does play a massive part to it, and can obviously or will dictate whether or not you get a job over others and stuff. But when it comes to like other industries, it's always felt that it's always I have more experience than you, therefore I'm better than you. Whereas art's a lot more, I guess, more relaxing now. Well, that's what I've seen in it in the last few years. Anyway, it's certainly grown, and it got a lot better in that way. Do you feel the same thing, or do you think maybe it's still a bit harsher on like the younger people?
No, I'm like, so going into the role that I'm in now as a tech designer, I've never had any experience for it before, not on paper.
Right.
I've never had another role title of the same thing. Um, so coming in, I was kind of like, oh, okay, I'll just kind of try my best and see where
Yep.
this goes. And then I'm chatting with people. I work with loads and loads and loads of different people, and they're all absolutely wonderful. Um, but I just chat with like our creative director and like a principal engineer, and a couple of them have been like mentoring me and stuff. And I was
Mhm.
like, they're like, we get just as much out of this as you do because you're coming in and you see things completely differently because we've lived through a different time. We bring a completely different perspective. We know kind of a different direction we want to take things in. Whereas from them, I'm learning about the experience of how you put stuff through together, how you put together proposals, and kind of all the logistics side as well as the guiding of like we've tried stuff like this in the past, things like this tend to happen down those roads. It's like
Yeah.
you then get that really nice marry of people coming in who are like, yeah, let's make games, versus then the side of like, I actually know how to make that, which is
Yeah.
a really
Exactly.
really nice it's a really nice balance. So because of that, I actually find a lot of people tend to be very very open and honest about stuff, and they're very very willing to chat with anyone of any experience because the good ideas and stuff, they can come from anywhere.
Like that's it's the same thing with like game jams. Like that's what I liked about Alberte. Like this is the thing though. So like I loved game jams and stuff, but I didn't take part in them. Like I obviously heard about like this is the mistake I made when I was in university. So I would see like Ryan tweeting about game jams all the time, and I'd be like I'm missing part, but I was so caught up with working. Like I was literally just doing, and I was like, so when they do the next game jam, I'm going to make sure that I actually get involved. I'm going to head down back to Dundee and take part in it because like that's another thing that's great to take part in because it's not just an Alberte thing. It's like in a global event, to be honest, in terms of it happens everywhere in the world, and like
Yeah,
that's another awesome thing for students. So if you're listening, make sure to check out global game jams. Basically, they're what it is. It's basically you get into a team and you have to make a game in a certain amount of time frame. Depending on like where you're going, sometimes they do all nighters. Believe it or not, like they'll literally go crazy and they'll just get on with their game. And but the good thing there's pizza involved, depending on where you go, so you can't go wrong with that. And but yeah, make sure to take part in these things. And
yeah,
I guess to tailor it back to what we were talking about, Uki, and is it Uki?
Oh, sorry.
Is that how you,
No,
yeah,
Yuki.
Yuki, that's how you pronounce it.
Yuki. Yeah.
Because it's like you said about EGX and stuff, like going to these conferences and getting the right information. Like that's another good thing to talk about in terms
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
community. I'm not sure if there's like any, I guess, events that you know of that you could maybe share. That'd be great.
That are coming up.
Or just
So,
things in general. Like so, one of the things I'm going to is a thing called Vertex. I'm not sure if you heard of Vertex before.
no, not ringing a bell. Not this time.
So Vertex
Whereabouts?
is so it's in London.
Okay.
So basically, I'm going down in 2 weeks. I think it's on the 8th, and basically it's like all the film and game artists come together and talk about VFX and talk about
Right. Okay.
jobs, and it's similar to what you were saying about portfolio reviews.
Sweet.
So basically, like, I'm not sure if there's any other things that are like similar to Dare, that
So
you know
there's
of.
there's a whole bunch of stuff on the art side. Industry workshops seems to be the place to go. And
Okay,
that tends to be at the end of the year, like November, December time, I think.
right.
And I know a whole bunch of people from Rare went to it last year. So industry workshops is a big one. Other ones that you can kind of take part, there's so much stuff up and down the country. So locally, I'd recommend everyone check out their local IGDA chapter, so the International Game Developers Association chapter. I know
Okay,
the Scottish branch, and I know many of the people behind it, and they run a pretty good one.
perfect.
And put on lots of really cool, useful, and very helpful events. But again, it's about bringing together developers.
Hmm.
So you check out for that one. You tend to have local game dev meetups. So I know um, Dundee used to have something called Burt Wednesdays. So I'm not sure if they're still going, but it was organized by a local developer, and people would go out for drinks at certain times, once every couple of weeks or something, and they'd all
Okay,
come together and chat. Um, Again, you get those up and down the country, just depending on where you are. When I lived in Guildford, I know the Guildford guys used to have one as well. So I'd always check out for your local ones because they're people where you can actually go and just chat to people. They're people who are always going to be there. You can build up support networks and things like that. Then you have kind of your larger national ones where you go. A lot of them tend to happen at conferences and events because people tend to all congregate around. So the weeks of things like Eurogamer or Develop is another big one. There tends to be a lot of then kind of separate breakout things that happen during that time, whether it's people going out for dinner, there's parties, there's networking meetings, drinks, whatever,
awesome.
walks along the beach if it's in Brighton. I
Lots of
think one
different
of them
things.
they go, yeah, I think one of them they actually get together and go swimming in the sea in the morning.
Right.
I think
Okay.
Charles Cecil runs that.
Brilliant. Awesome.
So there's something for everyone, is what it kind of comes down to, depending on what you like and what you enjoy. So it's keeping an eye out for it and kind of being in touch with Yuki. They tend to publish lists of events that are coming up. IGDA do the same as well.
Okay.
So signing up to their mailing list just so you know when those events are going to happen, following them on Twitter because they will tweet out about upcoming stuff. That's a really good way to do it.
Awesome. Because like one of the main things that I struggled with, I guess, in terms of when I was in university, was identifying like where to go.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's a lot of information that people can share and stuff, or what they think is best. But the thing I struggled with when I was at university was because I'm not really game orientated. I'm very
Yeah.
film orientated. So I've always been like my dream's weta digital, and everyone who's listening to the podcast has probably heard the word weta digital far too many times. But I can't, like, my whole goal is literally just to get into film. And I think when it comes to Scotland, I guess as a country, one of the hardest things is maybe getting like the right information for film, and that's where obviously I have to branch out kind of into like London and stuff. And
I
yeah,
I remember the Glasgow University of Arts, I want to say.
okay,
They used to run stuff because I went down a couple of times and I met um I've totally forgotten his name. I'm looking back that way because I know the DVD sitting on the shelf. But there's a film called Your Name, who was
hmm
directed by the same guy who wrote A Garden of Words and things. And he came and gave a talk, and they would, as students, you could then kind of apply to get tickets to go. So they did a few of these where they had like in-house talks by film people and stuff. So actually maybe branching out and reaching out to other universities as well, because a lot of the times if they can bring somebody in, they often publicize the events. And
yeah.
it's not just students there tend to get fast pickings, but if there's extra tickets and stuff, they often put them up to other people.
That's
Um,
like I never thought of it approaching that way, because like obviously when you're in university, you like you're kind of, I guess you think the university's tending to like, what's going to provide you with everything that you think you're going to get, or like or everything you want, if that makes sense. Like obviously that's one of the main things I learned when I went to university, was to make sure that I obviously did things on the side as well, because obviously it's down to you to do the work. But one of the hardest things is, like I said, was like trying to find out the correct information. And I guess like that's another good thing for students to do, is start not being so narrow-minded. Like make sure that they explore all the universities as well, and trying to identify like what place or what things they could offer to them to like benefit them in a way. Because it's like I said earlier, like asking questions has always been like the main, like my main go-to, like when I struggle. I've always just reached out to help, like who could help me, and if they can't help me, that's okay. Like it's okay to get turned down, but
Like the worst thing is they'll just be like, no, sorry, you can't attend.
yeah,
Like, that's the worst. The best thing is they're like, yeah, we've got a couple of spare spaces. It'd be awesome to have you there. I mean, you don't know if you don't ask.
exactly. So I guess on the next question. So this is obviously it's one of the main questions. I'm not sure based on your experience in terms of like online courses and stuff, but one of the questions I've always asked is like what's your thoughts on online versus university and college, and hearing about like your thoughts on just like the two in terms of like the benefits, based on what you think maybe, I guess like what was the main benefits of going to university for you?
So things are a little bit different back in my day. It wasn't even that long ago. It's just changed so much. So one of the big benefits for me when I was at uni was software wasn't available if you weren't a student. So things like Adobe's subscription plans, they didn't exist back then. No, yeah,
Really?
I saw the right. Yeah,
You saw my eyes, so I was just like, wow, right, okay.
no, they didn't. So
Really? Wow, right, okay.
oh, caveat. I didn't graduate that long ago. I only graduated like 4 years ago, so
Yeah,
it's not ancient times.
Because
But
because you 2 year, did you graduate 2 years after me? Because I graduated 2017. I think, I'm pretty sure.
I'm 2015. I graduated.
2015.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how much the university's changed. No, on you go. Sorry, I was interrupting.
No, that's okay. So things like that didn't exist, so you didn't have access to the software. So
Mhm.
even at a student discount to buy the suite was still like 300-400 quid, if I remember right.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was with student discount, otherwise it was like thousands. So
Yeah.
having access to the software, again, slightly changed, but still useful for things like Maya and things like that,
Mhm.
and the Autodesk suite. I would recommend university because the people you go through the course with, your peers tend to end up being the start of your network.
Mhm.
Like I look at where a lot of people in my course are now, and I've got friends across in King, we've got friends at Ubisoft, we've got friends like across the world in some cases. So that makes a really big difference as well, because it's then you can chat to people in different studios, you can find out what different opportunities are, and then you always potentially have an in if there's somewhere you really want to get to.
Yep.
So I'd always recommend that side as well. I like the fact that in our first year at university, it was a foundation year, so we did a bit of everything.
Okay.
And through that, I picked up scripting, which has been super helpful for the rest of my career, to be honest.
Perfect.
So having dabbled a little bit in audio and programming and art and animation, and even in design and production stuff, like being able to manage your time is super useful.
It's always a big one, yeah.
Yeah, and I also really like university. For us up in Scotland, it's 4 years, and it gives you 4 years to kind of explore, develop, and grow. It gives you kind of a chance where you can try out different things. Maybe what you originally went to do isn't what you end up doing when you leave, and that's okay, because you've been exposed to more things, and then you can kind of make better and more informed decisions. I haven't done an online course myself, but I know a couple of people who have.
Yeah.
And while the courses themselves are amazing, you have to really know what it is you want to do to make the most out of them, because you specialize so much on it. I also didn't think that they got the teamwork side of it as much as well, because you're not sitting and meeting with people face to face, you're not working in groups in quite the same way.
Yeah.
Doing remote work is becoming more common, but I would still say a lot of it is having those face to face social skills. You do build them up through university, and that gives you the chance to do so. But it all depends on who you are as a person as well.
Like, what do you want?
Yeah, it's 4 years of your life. For me, it was probably some of the best 4 years of my life.
Yeah, I'm the same.
I really, really enjoyed uni, and I'm really glad I went. So yeah, I would also recommend going to university because you get the options for scholarships and internships when you're a student. So I went out to the Game Developers Conference, GDC in San Francisco, offer scholarship from the IGDA and Intel, which is only open to students. And that basically kind of changed that's how I kind of got my job at Epic in the end, and then kind of also what led to me being here at Rare as well. So everything's connected that way. But you also then have the opportunity to do like year-long internships or sandwich years or however
Hmm.
you want to do it. Summer internships.
It's because of how everything's connected. It's like what you're saying. It's because there's so much. I guess. Well, everyone else says it's like how small the industry is that everything obviously connects together.
So I can really prove how small that is. So it must have been, is it 4 years ago? Just over 4 years ago,
Hmm.
I went to Eurogamer. Now we'd done Dare to be Digital. We'd made a game called Seek. We'd won a competition with Unreal Engine to showcase our game on their booth at Eurogamer in London. This was back when it was in Earl's Court. Whilst I was there, I met two of my future bosses, two
Oh
future
my
people who
god!
hired
Right.
me.
Okay.
I didn't know it at that point.
Yep.
So I met Chance, who was the person who kind of pulled me into Epic 6 months after I went there. Well, no, I finished my university course, and then 6 months after I finished uni. So
Hmm.
almost a year later, they hired me. And at the same time, I met Louise O'Connor, who has just hired me for Rare. Well, I say just hired me, it's like 8 months ago now. It's going quick. Time is flying. But she's that's the first time I met her, and now I work for her. So
That's
in that
amazing.
1 week, I met two people.
And that's why, like, it's always good to like. It's like you said. It's like you have to like go to these things, experience new events, try different things, but also obviously the main one, being nice to everyone and like make sure you have a good, I guess, relationship with everyone. Always try to be kind and supportive. It's scary to believe some of the stories that I've heard when people don't obviously be as kind and supportive. So always make sure you're in everyone's good books. It always helps.
Can I add to that as well? And it's not just to the people above you, because I've
Yeah.
seen that. So I've done GDC a few times, and people do what we call badge checking.
Hmm.
So people who want to speak to somebody important, I'm putting air commas around that, um, they'll check your badge and see what your position is, and if you're
Okay.
not high enough, they'll turn around and walk away. And the worst culprits of that tend to be students.
Right. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, and the thing that I never understood is like, okay, we're students at the moment. I've had somebody else say it to me. They're like, "You're a student. What can you offer me?" And it's
Hmm.
like, well, fast forward 4 years, and they're asking me for help on something else because of where it worked. It's
Yep.
we aren't students forever, um, and remember that because you don't know where people will be in even like 3 to 5 years time. Um, so yes, they may be a student at the moment, but it's not going to last forever.
Because it's like at the end of the day, a title's a title. It's all about respecting each other. Because
Exactly.
it's a team thing, and I think I was mentioning this in my last podcast. This is like another main thing I learned through Abertay, and it was because of Abertay I was able to, I guess, be more relaxed about it. So I've always been a very competitive person, in terms of my like just the way my upbringing was and stuff. And when I got to university, I had this habit of always wanting to do better than everyone, and I always felt like they were my competition. But then when I finished university, I learned to step back and kind of approach it of they're actually they're my friends, they're my team, and because of that, things just went better in general. And it's like what we're saying about connections, and you don't know where things are going to lie down in the future. So if you're developing a bad relationship with these students while at university, it's not going to help. And that's why I've always like that's the main thing I like to preach in terms of like what I was doing wrong when I was at university. Like I was always taking things so serious. Like obviously you want to take things serious. Like obviously you want to do well, but it's making sure it's in a healthy way.
I think it doesn't. Sometimes universities don't help with that though, because they put the pressure on saying the games industry is a very competitive industry, and obviously
Yeah,
then you're looking at the people around you who you're sharing a course with as like you said, it's your competition, but
yeah.
they're really not. They're going to be your colleagues and your support group and your friends first and foremost. I
What's
don't.
Oh, sorry, on you go.
I was just to say I don't think many of us ever even applied for the same jobs because
Hmm.
again, the industry is so vast in so many ways. Um, we kind of also forget that there's so many different roles and people from even from our arts course, they went in so many different directions, from technical art to animation to concept art to VFX. Like,
There's so many roles.
yeah, there is, and people tend to all go down very different paths. And even if they are your competition, again, in that sense,
Yeah,
that's good because that means that if it's a friendly competition where you're both pushing each other to be the best that you can,
yeah,
that's what you want.
definitely.
Yeah.
So before we finish the podcast, there's a few more questions I kind of want to ask just based on what your thoughts are in terms of
Sure.
experience and stuff. So one of the main things based on what I thought university, I guess, overthought was the grade system. So in terms of having so much, like a lot of writing as well. Obviously, a lot of people have their different opinions on this sort of question, because I think the writing stuff is important as well. Like it has its purpose. Like it does have a reason to be there. But I was just wondering, just in terms of education as a whole, do you think education should, when it comes to artists, anyway, in terms of like the artist industry, do you think it should be more tailored towards portfolio and those soft skills, or do you think having a lot of briefs is important as well? Because obviously a lot of people are, I guess, when they do start university, it's like you said, the first year was very important because it had that broad spectrum, it had that variety and stuff. But obviously in the later years, obviously you want things to be more tailored into what you want and stuff. But a lot of things are heavy written orientated as well. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on having lots of writing. I know it's a big question, so
It's a big question.
sorry for hitting you with the big one.
That's okay. So I actually found the writing stuff super useful,
Okay,
and I've actually been complimented many times on my career for my ability to write really clear and concise reports.
perfect.
Like when I, from the writing that I've done when I was there,
Mhm.
it's even spread out into other things I do. So I haven't updated it in a while because life, but I'm like writing my tutorial website. I
Okay,
get so many comments that people go, your tutorials are so easy and clear to understand with how you lay things out and just the language you use. And again, all of that was developed whilst I was at uni. I would say, again, a lot of people didn't do it. Go and speak to your library, because our library at Abertay, they offered help in all the writing.
yep.
So I would take my stuff along, like I would, not even just in my final year. I kind of did it in my final year, and again, I wish I'd done that earlier. So I took along like my thesis proposal and then like a chapter of part of my dissertation, just to kind of get their thoughts on like my writing style and the way I was writing things and how I was laying stuff out. And it was super useful, and they kind of helped coach me a little bit with the language and how I phrase things. And again, it's one of those things that you only develop through practice.
Yep.
So I know it can be a bit of a struggle, but at the same time, in uni as well, you get to write about what you're interested in. So if you're not enjoying it, then I'd probably be questioning what you're writing about
Yeah.
as well, not just the actual style of it. Because when you go out into the industry and stuff, you're going to end up having to write reports that maybe you don't want to write.
Hmm.
So if that's the scenario, you're writing about something you're not enjoying, writing about something that you enjoy already, how are you going to cope with that other scenario?
How are you going to be ready
Or,
for it?
yeah, and you're going to have to do writing, whether that's for job applications, whether it's for once you're actually inside and you're doing internal reports or status updates or whatever it may be,
Hmm.
research documents, everything.
Because like when it comes
Yeah.
to writing, I think with me is like, so at the moment I'm writing a few cover letters, and obviously through my experience of university, I was able to, like for example, the Principals Award, that was able
Yeah.
to give me a foundation for that. I guess when it comes to the whole like the whole debate when it comes to the topic of, I guess, dissertations and stuff, I think the reason why a lot of people maybe dislike it is obviously because it's taking them away from their art. However, it's like you said, it does play like an important role, and obviously you want to make sure you do it right. And obviously it plays a part of your research, which obviously inevitably makes you just better in terms of like you have better knowledge of what you're talking about. You learn more about the area that you're getting into, so it's really helpful that way. I think like the reason why I brought it up is because out of all the students that I have brought into the podcast so far, like there's sort of that sort of like debate in terms of the balance in between, like how important should it be, like should like university just be art based, like should you literally just go to for example a course and just do art and just learn the craft. And I think that's the difference between like online courses and university, is university provides you, like you said, the like everything, whereas the online courses is more like what I'm describing there, if
Yeah,
that makes
so,
sense. So
yeah.
that's like the another advantage obviously the university has. No, that's awesome. Thank you so much for saying that. I'm not sure if there's anything else you'd like to bring up in terms of your experiences or anything that you'd like to maybe mention before we finish the podcast, but is there anything else come to mind?
Other thing was like try to encourage students. Like the industry is in a really good place right now. Like
Okay.
so many different things are happening, so many things are changing. There's just so much stuff just happening all of the time, which is really, really exciting.
Yep.
And I think we're at a really cool defining point because games are maturing. We're starting to see games for many, many different types of audiences.
Yep.
We're starting to expand in terms of not only experience, but actual visual experience, player experience, audio experience. Everything is just growing out and just diversifying, which is amazing. So just to be like, you guys are going to do something super cool when you come out in like 2 or 3 years, and kind of don't lose sight of that. Don't lose sight of the fact that I know you're going to get weighed down and worried about like your thesis and writing it and getting ready for coming out into the industry. Just kind of always remember that there's going to be such an amazing thing waiting at the end of that time.
Yep.
Even if it doesn't happen immediately after you finish, it will come.
I think that's the scary thing, like, in terms of that people put so much pressure on themselves when they're at university, that they naturally expect for some reason that they have to get a job straight away. And I really like how you put it there, like you don't have to, like, obviously you want, it'd be great if you could jump into a job. It'd be awesome. It'd make things a lot easier, but there's no rush. Like, obviously, like, just take your time, have fun with it, and that's the main thing. That you should be enjoying what you're doing. Thank you so much for that. So everyone who's listening to the podcast, make sure to go follow Jess on social media. I'm going to have a slideshow on the back of all her work. So she makes some really good cake artwork. If you want to talk about your artwork from your cakes, you can if you want. That'd be great.
Yeah, so
I
I was talking about, a slightly different take on things.
Yeah.
I bake. I like to bake. But specifically, I like to bake cakes of games and kind of films and things like that.
Yep.
And I really like it because it's very tactile. Which is really nice to go and do after kind of staring at a screen for so long. But it's I was talking to somebody else about this because I've also just gotten into crocheting, and it's really strange, but everything kind of just connects. So me making cake and doing the art for the cake, it's really helped doing like modeling, like 3D modeling, and especially then mixing that with crocheting. I was like, every time I crochet a loop, it's like an extra edge loop that I'm adding to a character.
I like the way you're thinking.
I was like, and now it all makes sense of how like you create forms and stuff.
Definitely.
But I will also say that I know you mentioned pizza. Pizza may be slightly dying a little bit because we eat pizza so much. Cake is the new pizza.
Cake is the new pizza.
Cake into work, everyone loves it. It's
everyone's happy.
You want to make a lot of friends really, really quickly, bring cake in and just be like, hey everyone, free cake. Awesome. And then especially if you make it look super fancy, then they're like, yeah.
Well, the cakes that you make, you can't go wrong because they look really cool. They're awesome.
True. Thank you.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It really means a lot.
Thank you so much for doing this, because I think this is totally awesome that you're creating these podcasts for students and really helping people out, and it's awesome. And I kind of really wish there was more people like yourself just being able out there trying to share knowledge between everyone and make this place a better place for everyone. Like,
the easy thing for me, and obviously it's the hard thing for students, but when I first started, for example, doing 3D, I always knew what I wanted to do. So I got obsessed of 3D because of Tintin. So I watched Spielberg's Tintin animation with Peter Jackson, and I was like, this is me in 5th and 6th year in secondary school, and I was like, okay, so I know what I want to do, and I was just obsessed with it. So for the last 8 years, all I did was 3D. Whereas I know so many students who are listening maybe don't have such an easy, like, they don't know exactly what they want to do, and like, I've always just tried to make it as easy as possible. And I think by doing this podcast, it kind of hopefully nudges them in the right direction a wee bit, because all the podcasts that I've seen so far, everyone's I guess, like, they're bringing on experts and stuff, but just because they're bringing on experts, they're still not, like, a lot of people are still afraid to share everything, if that makes sense. Whereas when I bring on students or former students, they know what it's like. Like, obviously I could bring on people who've had 50 years experience, but it's a little bit harder to get I guess, as accurate information from them as possible, if that makes sense.
It's not as relevant anymore because things are so different. I mean, things have changed so much, even in me being away for 4 years. Yeah,
like, it's growing so quickly, and it's like what you said with games, it's growing rapidly. But thank you so much for coming on. Everyone who's listening, make sure to leave a like. It'll be much appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe. There'll be lots of content, hopefully every Sunday. There's I've got the next 6 weeks, I think, covered of guests, so make sure to check them out. And thanks once again, Jess. And make sure to go follow her on all her social medias. I will add everything in the description below. So go spam her. And yeah, thank you very much.
My DMs are always open if you have any more questions, so feel free to send them my way.
Perfect. And we will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.
I say thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to Ross Baxter's YouTube channel for excellent tutorials and podcasts.